Welcome back to our series. Today we're talking about letting it go. It being the things that we carry with us after we make mistakes, and that can lead to unforgiveness towards ourselves. In the last two videos, we've been making the case that when we don't forgive ourselves, it can impact our relationship with God, and subsequently, our relationship with others too. It stops us from living fully the life that Jesus died to give us. That harboring unforgiveness towards ourselves may even actually be considered sin because Scripture doesn't give us permission to do it. And that all sounds good, right? But I don't know what happened. I don't know what you did. And that's true. I don't know what you've been through. However, I do know that it's very easy to say I need to forgive myself, to let it go, but it's not always very easy to actually do it. So let's talk about it. Well, there are many reasons to be upset with yourself. There are generally three categories I want to talk about in our remaining episodes. The first is being upset or not forgiving oneself because of choices we've made that we look back on and wish that we'd made a different choice. Maybe not that we've necessarily hurt anybody, but just with life choices that impact our lives. When you're at a crossroads and have to make a choice, it's so easy to think back and say, if I'd only picked the other road, my life or the lives of others would be so much better. If only I'd taken that job. If only I'd accepted their proposal. If only I'd invested in this stock. If only I'd taken out my retirement to start my own business. If only. And the list goes on and on and on. The basic premise is that I believe something about my life would be better if only I was smart enough or brave enough to do the other thing. Maybe I'd be wealthy and not have to struggle each day if I'd only invested when I'd had the chance, or whatever it is. And because of that, we start to live with regret, to be upset with ourselves for not doing whatever it is we think we should have done. And it leads to being unable to forgive ourselves for our past choices. In this scenario, we don't have anything to hold against anybody else, and nobody is necessarily holding anything against us. We just know that we've somehow messed up and believe we've lost something. And that can be rough. This kind of unforgiveness, though, completely ignores Scripture and the character of our God. See, Romans 8:28 says, "And we know with great confidence that God, who is deeply concerned about us, causes all things to work together as a plan for good for those who love God, to those who are called according to His plan and purpose." When we aren't able to forgive ourselves for this kind of event in our lives, we simply have a perspective issue. And I can completely relate to this scenario. You see, I went back to school as an adult and even got 2 degrees in a field that I don't even work in today. Now, before that, I became a paramedic instead of completing my first degree when I was a young adult, and I struggled for years to make ends meet for my family. So when I got the chance to go back, I pursued a career that I ultimately chose not to work in because something even better came along. See, I put the responsibility for my success in life on myself and the choices I made. When I made a choice that I thought wasn't working out well, I blamed myself. And my young family had to struggle a bit, and I took responsibility for that and had a hard time forgiving myself for it. But I wasn't thinking about Romans 8:28. Though those choices I had made, God was still deeply concerned for me and was causing things to work together for my good. You see, those harder days taught us something as a family. We learned values that we wouldn't otherwise have today, and through it all, we never missed a meal. Who's to say that having more money or working in a different career would have resulted in my life being any better anyway? In the middle of unforgiveness towards myself, I couldn't consider those things. All I saw was my perceived failures. Now, on the other side of forgiveness, though, me forgiving myself, I can look back and say with complete certainty that I would have probably never met my wife if I'd followed the other path, nor would I have the children I do now. That pathway would have probably never led me to the encounter I had with God that led to me accepting Jesus, and would have never led me to work in ministry. See, that's the problem with looking back at a crossroads. We see or imagine the best case scenario down the other path. But the truth is that we have absolutely no idea what would have really happened. Would you have gotten rich? Maybe. Would that wealth ultimately have led to your life being better? In some ways, maybe. But I know a lot of wealthy people who are absolutely miserable and filled with worry. And that's just one example of the things we tend to try to hold on to blame ourselves for, and settle into unforgiveness towards ourselves. You see, we tend to put way too much credit on ourselves for our successes and failures. To be just brutally honest, it's really nothing more than pride. Because no matter what path we choose, God is right there, deeply concerned about us, and causing all things to work together for our good. He really is just that great. So the next time you look back with regret and wish you'd taken a different path or made a different choice, just remember that God is very big, very good, and very concerned about your well-being. And if He is truly for us, then who can be against us? Even ourselves. The next time I feel this way, I'm going to choose to take comfort in the knowledge that He knows more than I do, and He is well capable of taking care of me and making my life better. I won't dwell on the unknowns of the past. I will choose to let those go. And I will instead look to Him and thank Him that whatever choice I make, He's with me, He is for me, and He will make it good. It takes the pressure off of me and makes it very hard for me to harbor unforgiveness towards myself, because no matter what path I choose, He's there, and that's all I need. I look forward to seeing you next week.